Today on Cheeses with Jesus, we're back to some of those basic cheeses that you can pick up at almost any grocery store. They come in those almost 8-ounce chunks, sometimes 7.5 ounce or whatever. Today we're going to be looking at the Holy Swiss cheese as we study theology together, the study of God being holy and perfect. And so I thought, let's bring in that basic Swiss cheese with holes in it because God's holy and this cheese is holy. Yeah, I know it's cheesy and you've been waiting for that one ever since we started Cheeses with Jesus. Today we're going to look at some of the things of the basic theology, the basic studies of God here. And this next week we're going to kind of get into a little bit of a series on that. And we're going to look specifically today what we hear in Mark 12, love God above all things. We're going to look at that first and that greatest commandment. Here's what it says. One of the teachers of the law came and heard them debating, noticing that Jesus was giving them a good answer. And he asked, of all the commandments, which is the most important? He asked to Jesus. Now, we know that in the Jewish tradition, there was about 613 Torah laws or Old Testament laws that they had to keep. And that we know 10 of those really well in Lutheran theology as we learn the 10 commandments from Exodus chapter 20 as we study, or if we look to Deuteronomy chapter 6 in our homes. And we hear the next part of this, something that's interesting that comes from that directly giving the commandments to the Lord's people. We called it the Shema in the Old Testament, which is the Hebrew word. But here it is what it says in verse 29. The most important one, Jesus answered, is this. Hear, O Israel, that's the part that comes into Deuteronomy, the Shema, the Lord your God, the Lord is one. So it's reminding us the position of who God is. Before God gives his people the commandments, he says, I am your God, I guided you out of Egypt, and because I am your God, now I give you these commands, these things to do. And so the first three, we call them the first table of the law. Maybe you heard that in our Sunday school video here a couple of weeks ago. But that first three table of the law is all pointing to God and what God has done. Love God above all things, right? Do not misuse the name of the Lord your God, and remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, right? Come to church, come to hear God's word, come to the place where you set apart a day for the Lord. Not just 1 hour, but set apart a day in your life as a family to be learning about God and to have him at the center and the focus of what you're doing, and rest and relax. Pause as a family, reflect on who God is and what God has done in your life for you. And so this is what he says, is love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength and mind. That is the first and the greatest commandment. We hear that in Mark chapter 12, 28 to 30. And then he goes on and he says, and the second is like it, which we're going to look at tomorrow with another white cheese very similar to this. Love your neighbor as yourself. And then he says, all the law and all the prophets hang on these two commandments. Elsewhere he says, do these things and you will live. What's the point of all this? The point is to understand that no matter what we're going through in this life, those moral laws still exist, right? And that's why they're pressing Jesus. They want to know what law, now that you're coming as this so-called Messiah and you're this great teacher who seems to know all things, what's most important for us as believers in the true God then? And he says, don't ever forget to love God above all things. Do that with your heart, do that with your soul, do that with your mind, right? Constantly in your daily activities, keep in the front of you this God who is above all things, right? And so we continue to live that out in our lives as God's children as we continue to keep those commandments and teach those commandments to our children in our home. So we're able to see here as we look at this basic cheeses and learn about the theology of God, that God is the creator of all things. God is the one who's given us new life in Christ. God is the one who's called us to faith with the Holy Spirit by hearing the words of what God the Father and God the Son has done. And so in our lives, we keep God at the center and the focus when we continue to see how he's present and what he's doing by studying his word. And that's part of what Cheeses with Jesus is all about, right? With Cheeses with Jesus, we're looking to God's scriptures and saying, how does this relate to my life? Basically, how does this relate to me in my living out my life everywhere that I go?